But my larger difference that I've seen because of the OTT industry is the fact that, relatable stories came to the fore. It opened horizons. People started looking at content and saying that what I do is also stuff that other people do. They started
Mhm.
relating to this content. New behaviors were discovered. Cultural barriers were broken. One thing that entertainment does to you is it brings out a lot of cultures to you. One of the forums, I was speaking to some of the insurance folks, and they were telling me that now when it comes to renewals, we don't say hi, hello. We just send them the best costs for his insurance renewal on WhatsApp. That the consumer is still in love with the content and he is not in love with the platform. Today, when you have a conversation with your friends, it's very easy to say that, oh, I saw so and so film, it's really good, or I saw so and so web series, it's really good. But start asking this question, where did you see it? And it takes you a couple of seconds. And suddenly you go like, oh, where did I see it? Or when you're talking about upcoming content, you're constantly thinking, which platform do you see it on? Typically, a consumer in India would have about two and a half, on an average, OTT apps on his phone.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to yet another episode of the Growth Genius, powered by Infidigit. This is where we bring to you growth stories in marketing and business. Today's Growth Genius is someone who started his career in IT, but eventually the marketing bug bit him, and he then played important roles in marketing across various industries. Today, he's in a very interesting space in the entertainment industry. And in this episode, I got to learn a lot about how marketing and technology is being used in the entertainment industry to build a brand per se. We are talking about one of the most respected entertainment brands in this country. Without further ado, please join me in welcoming Mr. Aman Joshi, who is the digital marketing lead at Shemaroo Entertainment Limited. Aman, welcome to the Growth Genius and thanks a lot for your time. It's a pleasure to have you here on our podcast.
Thanks. I'm very happy that you invited me. It's a pleasure for me to be here, actually.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much. To start with, Aman, I would like to understand, what is your current role at Shemaroo?
Sure. So at Shemaroo, I lead the digital marketing team. And Shemaroo, as you know, is a large media conglomerate, so it's spread across businesses. My team largely supports three very critical businesses of Shemaroo. One is the OTT, which is called Shemaroo Me. It's the largest content OTT app in Gujarat. So we are a regional OTT app, and that's where we've the flagship product is all Gujarati, and that's where we've gained maximum market share. The the second large business that my team supports is YouTube. You must have seen a lot of Shemaroo videos come up on YouTube. YouTube is a large business for us and requires good amount of digital marketing support. About 200 million subscribers span these channels, and some of our, at least I know, the top two channels are in the top 25 channels of the world. So you will find all the biggest names, and then you'll see Bollywood and filmy Gane from Shemaroo. And the third business my team supports is the broadcast business, which is largely our TV channels. So, Hindi TV channels, Shemaroo TV, Shemaroo Umang, Shemaroo Chumbak, and Shemaroo Marathi Bana, which is a Marathi channel. And beyond these, of course, as a media company, there are various other businesses which need digital marketing support. So, digital syndication, in-flight entertainment, the content that you see while you're traveling on flight, our music business, B2B sales. That's what my team looks at. My team largely is divided into three pieces. There's largely the social media team, because our social media pages for all these businesses now span across 25 million subscribers put together. And the creative team, because digital is all about creative, and there's so much creative churn that's happening. And of course, the third piece is the performance marketing team, which is the wins that we're immediately trying to get from the digital media space.
Amazing. So that captures a lot of ground, so to say, as far as entertainment is concerned per se. And obviously, everybody, all of us grew up seeing Shemaroo videos in various formats. So yeah, it's quite an interesting place to be. Thanks for that. And Aman, my next question is about your professional journey per se. You have had a very interesting journey across various industries. So please tell us something more about that.
Sure. So, interestingly, while I'm in marketing, I started off as an IT engineer. I studied engineering, but I was very entrepreneurial in nature. And by the time I started working at PCS, back then Patni Computers was a major IT company, so I had a tech background. But then post MBA, during my MBA days, I could see that digital marketing is, within marketing, digital is going to take up a large part of, focus, effort, budgets, everything. So that's where I started my journey. And digital marketing as a subject then applies itself to various industries. So my first job post MBA was retail. I worked in Tata Chroma, where digital marketing means a lot of customer service, means a lot of new product launches, means a lot of online plus BTL, because you need to get so many people at your stores. At least back then it was such, because online buying was still in its nascent stages. From there, I hopped over to Tata Housing. And Tata Housing is again B2C, but largely real estate based. So some of the best campaigns that I got to work on were basically making people do bookings for houses online. And that's a consumer change that we could see back then, that people were okay to at least plan buying a house online and pay a booking amount and then do a conversation. And then I moved into Edelweiss, which was again real estate and finance. And finally, all of it came together when I joined Shemaroo. It's been close to 5 years now, which is absolutely B2C media and entertainment. It's constant consumer touch points, it's constant content launches, it's constant communication. In the middle of working in Tata Edelweiss and Shemaroo, I also did a stint in one of the agencies, and I largely did that because, back then it was essential that to get a better hold on digital marketing, it's a great idea to understand the subject from the agency side as well. So my career largely was, a lot of learning and consolidation in the first two phases, and right now it's more of application. So everything that I've learned over a little over a decade and a half now is all getting into practice with the application directly.
Wonderful. So somewhere the circle is getting complete, so to say, and culmination
True.
of this journey is actually, taking shape now, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful. And OTT, as you said, Shemaru is in the OTT space, and it's a very interesting space right now. Tell us something more about OTT in terms of its importance and the challenges that it faces. So we would love to hear your perspective on this.
Sure. I mean, the advent of OTT has impacted uh, you, me, and everyone around us in various ways. I mean, OTT has impacted us. It's impacted businesses like the television business, theaters, and more importantly, this has happened. I think a large catalyst to the OTT industry and its importance in our lives today comes from the fact that there was a big leap, there was a big boost that COVID did to us, which actually induced the habit of watching more content into us, which induced the habit of watching content while we're traveling, in our free time. Even planning family get togethers became about watching content together. So I cannot even talk about how big OTT has an impact on our lives. But I'll put in some very interesting points on the subject. The advent of the OTT industry has done for consumers is the fact that it's brought about entertainment without inhibitions to people. You know, content watching for the longest was television and theaters, which was about viewing content with people around you. India for the longest has been a single TV home, and single screen TVs. Watching means that you're sitting with your spouse, your parents, your children, and you're watching content together. The change that OTT brought in was that now I have a screen for myself. It's my personal space, which led to a lot of changes in consumer behavior. Now people want to watch content which is even related to sensitive topics, which are related to differentiated career choices which they didn't want to see with their parents, which are related to personalized content. With the advent of OTT, there was a lot of content which was created specifically, very well targeted for Gen X, Gen Y, Gen Z, and everybody could connect to what was happening. This is more from the consumer side. From the supplier side, also there's been a huge impact. The freedom of speech that directors, producers got was immense. Look at the content today. There is such a strong intensity of emotions that directors, producers are able to create. That, whether it's language, sometimes it's even violence, sometimes even deeper emotions which can be shown so clearly because there's a personal viewing that's happening. And of course, the OTT industry has done a lot in terms of bringing content anytime, on demand, no appointment viewing. All of those things are very much up there for people. But my larger difference that I've seen because of the OTT industry is the fact that relatable stories came to the fore. It opened
Mm-hmm.
horizons. People started looking at content and saying that what I do is also stuff that other people do. They started
Mm-hmm.
relating to this content. New behaviors were discovered. Cultural barriers were broken. One thing that entertainment does to you is it brings out a lot of cultures to you. And the OTT industry played a very strong role because a lot of global content started coming to people. So, it breaks barriers. Culturally, things that you did not accept started getting into the roots of acceptance. Things that you didn't know of existed, you suddenly knew about them. And suddenly, a lot of these things also start getting imbibed in our own lives. So the fabric of culture also starts changing, when an industry like this hits consumers. That's largely how importantly, it's changing everything that's happening around us. Of course,
Amazing.
it comes with challenges too.
Yeah.
Uh, what's also happening is with so much international content, the consumer's expectation is that today. If he's seen a Game of Thrones, he's expecting the same thing to get produced in India. He wants to see it in OTT. Uh, and the Indian consumer is also a little different. He believes that while I want to get the best content, I also don't want to pay as much for it. In fact, I want to share passwords. And you and I can keep our hands on our heart and say how many passwords we've shared. And it's honestly out there. So, of course, the challenge is how do you create content uh, for people who are going to share your content, share their passwords. Typically, the OTT industry works at an ARPU of 500 to $1,000. So that's the average revenue you're making per user in a year. But the consumer also wants the spectacle in that amount. So if he pays that amount, he comes to watch content because he wants something spectacular, and that something spectacular means bigger stars, bigger locations, bigger graphics, but all at that same packaged cost. So the challenge in the industry is that, of course, there's so much clutter. There is great content that you have to make. You have very little. You have to play in certain budgets. Your competition, a typical OTT player launches about anything between 50 to 500 titles a year. So there's just so much content being created. The point is, how do you stand out while all this is happening? That's become very important today.
Yes, very interesting, and yeah, it has multifold effects on our lives per se. If you look at, like you rightly said, the behavior and the culture and so on and so forth. And yes, it is becoming more and more cluttered. So looking at regional content per se, and it is growing in importance day by day. So what is your perspective on the increasing demand of regional content?
I think what's happening with especially in the OTT industry and actually in all industries which are entertainment related is that there is a certain level of maturity that the consumer has when he consumes content, and hence great content today doesn't need a language. Language is no more a barrier. If the content is great, people will watch it in whatever language. The biggest example are the international examples of the acceptance of Korean content in India, for example. People have watched this content in subs, with subtitles, uh, with dubs, with dubbing led content. So, first of all, there is acceptance because now the focus is on content. The other thing that's important is when you look at regional content per se, what you're actually bringing for the consumer is how relatable is this content for him. Because there's already one thing, especially in India in the HSM markets. Uh, the consumer is exposed to international content. That's a different thing. But more importantly, here is exposed to Bollywood, and Bollywood makes the best kind of content. Honestly, it's one of the best industries globally. Uh, so you're competing with Bollywood when you're making regional content, but regional content is winning everywhere. There is relatability with the consumer. So I'll give you an example. Look at we work in the Gujarati regional content space very very strongly. Uh, and you even look at Bollywood films and you look at some of our shows and TV serials and soaps and all of them. They will have a Gujarati setup, food, some part of language, clothing, very essentially, and that's bringing in relatability. Now, this combined with the Gujarati language itself appeals to a lot of people. So the only thing you have to find is that there should be acceptability and relatability for the content you create. And people, whatever resonates with their normal life and their culture, will accept it. Even if you create stories which are very different to what's happening in their cultures, so you have to be a little, aware of these nuances, and then create content which people start accepting. Of course, constant measurement, calibration, looking at your penetration, brand tracking, feedback, these are hygiene factors which have led to the growth of the regional content space in India.
Absolutely. Thanks for sharing those inputs, Aman. Coming to the next question, wanted to understand your outlook on the changing consumer needs, specifically in this age of digitalization.
The consumer needs are changing very fast, and that's largely because the digital consumer today is smarter and he's always on the go. So, the first thought that today's digital consumer has is there an easier way to do this? Or is there an easier way to access this? Is there an easier way to, there are easier payment methods? Is there easier way to pay? Is there also an easier way of findability? You as a content provider, are you providing me the right suggestions at the right time? Are your notifications, are your social media posts telling me the right things at the right time? His expectation is very high today. Even from an SEO perspective, his expectation is that the most relevant thing shows up to me as soon as I search for it. Considering my background, considering what I'm looking for, it has to be apt for what I need. The second thing the consumer is also looking at today is that with the advent of so much digitization around him, is my life getting enriched? And he needs content not just for entertainment, it's a way of life, honestly. Content is a conversation starter today. Your content choices define you. It helps you create influence about on your friends. When you meet a set of people today, the consumer is such that he's so exposed to so many things digitally that he starts conversations of a certain type within content, because that's his strong point, that's what he believes in, that's how he's defined amongst his friends. So what he's looking forward to is that search engines give me the right suggestions. I know what is the trending content, and these are things that you'll see on most applications. You will see trending content, what's number one in your country, what are your friends watching. The consumer today needs all types of content. He needs snackable content, he needs binge worthy content. uh, in fact, on our own app on Shemaroo, we one of the buttons that we put up was the best clip of only comedy scenes, or the best scenes of all the content put together. And it's just so beautiful because you've seen the whole film, you've seen the whole web series, but there are certain points that you really remember. And this what this content does is it's just thumb stopping content. You just keep scrolling to look at the best scenes, and that's how the consumer has changed today.
Yeah, yeah, very true. Those probably have a lot of views and likes as well, maybe,
Absolutely.
because
Shareability is big.
yeah, very interesting. And obviously, you touched upon search, and coming to advertising. Advertising per se has changed a lot in the digital age. So, what are the benefits and pitfalls that you see because of this change?
I'll take some of the pitfalls first. There's a whole lot of benefits, but there are some things that we need to first establish and understand. Uh, in today's age, the the one thing that everybody is fighting is the clutter. Undoubtedly, uh, I saw a report which says that a consumer looks at his phone, even if he doesn't want to use his phone, looks at his phone at least 150 times a day. This morning, I read another report which says that the American consumer is exposed to 10,000 ads in a day. So there are ads everywhere. Basically, there's advertising even on lock screens. There is advertising in apps, in browsers. Uh, there's just advertising everywhere. So the problem is that brands need to identify how to innovatively communicate so that they find some visibility. One interesting thing that I've seen is that a lot of brands use shock value as a great method of standing out in the clutter. You've seen the cred ads, you've seen Mr. Dependable, Rahul Dravid ads, and all these are different, and that's how they stand through. The challenge is that how do you invest, how do you constantly innovate, and how do you obviously stand out? There are obviously benefits, undoubtedly. With the digital age, targeting has become extremely intrusive. It's fantastic for advertisers. It's also scary for some consumers, but that's the truth of life. We keep meeting the Facebook and Google folks all the time, and every time we meet them, they keep telling us of how they've added newer signals to identify consumer behavior and how we are able to target those particular signals uh, in such a way that we find the right consumer at the right time. Uh, in the digital age today, advertising is also seeing a lot of personalized communication, which is beautiful. Today, you can talk to consumers basis the language that they choose to listen to you in. You can do a lot of conversation marketing. You can address people by name. You can address people by anything. In one of the forums, I was speaking to some of the insurance folks, and they were telling me that now, when it comes to renewals, we don't say hi, hello. We just send them the best costs for his insurance renewal on WhatsApp. So there's no conversation. It just says that here are the best options. What do you want to do this year? It's become as intrusive as that. AI has improved in advertising very heavily. Great example is Google's Performance Max, Facebook's AI algorithm. So a lot of conversion based targeting has helped the whole industry as such. So just from moving from identifying pockets of people that we want to advertise, now we just have to keep the product in front of a Google or a Facebook and say that this is my product, find me the right audiences, and AI takes care of that. So that's a huge difference that AI has created in advertising. And of course, platforms are working on a lot of tools to develop this also. So let's take, for example, Google's GA4, which basically combines the insights from web and app put together. And now for a marketeer, it's easy to look at his consumer from what he's doing on the app and what he's doing on the web. So technology itself has leveraged the whole digital marketing piece in advertising today.
Yes, it does plays a very important role in advertising, and marketing per se has changed a lot. And I would like to understand from you, how do you build a entertainment brand ground up in today's age of the new kind of marketing that we are seeing?
Sure, for building an entertainment brand, I think the key primary focus is actually the consumer, and the consumer and finding consumer insights is extremely important. In the digital age, there's just so much data. There's data everywhere. There's numbers all over. The job of a smart marketeer, hence today, at least for an entertainment company, is to find the nuances and the insights in that data. So consumer insight, his said and unsaid needs, but it's important for us to identify these nuances and then build content accordingly. The second focus for an entertainment company is obviously the content itself. Undoubtedly, while OTT platforms, television, theaters, these are all mediums, the primary product is the content itself. So constant innovation is extremely important. Bringing new ideas, concepts is important. Being contemporary is very important because consumers want to consume content, but they want to consume content and say, what's next? Where is the world going? How is the world changing? Those are the places that they want to constantly, that's the kind of content they want to consume. So for an entertainment brand, it becomes extremely essential to cater to all these needs. Find the right insights, have your tentpole properties in place. So you will see that every entertainment and media company is doing this. They have one big tentpole, big property, which is actually the bait, the clickbait to bring people in. And then there is sustenance content, which is well advertised, it's very nuanced, it's very well created, very well crafted, not as heavily advertised as the tentpole, but it keeps the guy into coming back. And that's the essential thing, in building an entertainment brand today, you need so much of retention of people because the money is is in the retention, and that's how you get lifetime value from them. And to get that lifetime value, you have to balance your content in such a fashion that my
Hmm.
tech goals will come out and then my sustenance content will come out, but will keep the consumer with me. Which also means that we have to do very good advertising and marketing in terms of the kind of touch points we create with them. So
Right.
very large plans happen in terms of putting journeys together, in terms of emails, SMS, obviously targeting from Facebook, Google, everything that's happening in that space. But more importantly, identifying the right touch points and doing some meaningful touch point communication with him. What he wants to consume on what platform is essential. And finally, building brand love is very important, because what's happening in the entertainment space today is that the consumer is still in love with the content and he is not in love with the platform. Today, when you have a conversation with your friends, it's very easy to say that, oh, I saw so and so film, it's really good, or I saw so and so web series, it's really good. But start asking this question, where did you see it? And it takes you a couple of seconds. And suddenly you go like, oh, where did I see it? Or when you're talking about upcoming content, you're constantly thinking, which platform do you see it on? Typically, a consumer in India would have about two and a half, on an average, OTT apps on his phone. And of course, the upwardly mobile consumer has four and five. So he's lost in it. He doesn't remember the platform unless you create very strong brand love. Which means for every brand, it's become essential to create a brand persona. People need to understand a persona for that platform, and then they start remembering that, oh, this brand makes this kind of content constantly. And hence, a straightly aligned content pipeline, which is also in the guardrails of the kind of communication you do every time, is essential. And that starts building brand love. So these are my larger thoughts on how do you build the brand, from the ground, and then eventually the numbers start unfolding.
Very interesting. Yeah, you're very right. I mean, as a platform, you need to create that brand, and that is always a marketer's challenge in terms of how you make the OTT brand or the platform brand per se stick in the minds of the consumers. Very interesting. Obviously, coming to digital marketing, we have to talk about influencers. So, what do you think of influencers? What are what is the role they play as per your thoughts?
You know, there's a trust barometer report that comes every year, and a couple of years back, I was looking at the trust barometer, and for years it would say that people believe reviews from their friends, family, parents, teachers, etc. And I'll tell you what's changed. Now, when I look at the report, it says that people believe people, and and that means they believe anybody, and that's how we are today. When we try to buy a product from Amazon, we read all the reviews, but we never see who's written the review, or we never click on that profile to see what other things has he bought or who is he, etc. None of it matters. What matters is the review.
Yeah.
Influencers hence have become so important today because people are just following to get a quick advice from the right people immediately. Now, I also said from the right people. So, what's happening in the influencer space is, look at how we are using social media today. Social mediums, social platforms for the longest were about following what's happening in the life of our friends, family, and all of that. But today the consumer is changed again. Today social media platforms are following a set of influencers, and that's the side kind of influencers I follow. So if you go to your Insta account, you will have about 5 or 10 influencers, and you'll constantly see content from them, and you'll constantly follow only those 10 people. And once in a while someone new will get added. Very rarely you'll unfollow an influencer. And that's the power the influencer holds. Now that friend circle has become an influencer circle for me. That's the kind of guy I keep following all the time. For brands, it's extremely important because these influencers are obviously influencing people. But the important thing over there is, how can that influence that they're creating come out as authentic? When the content comes out as authentic to people, then the believability is very high. When the influencer is not trying to sell me a story, but he's trying to just tell me a story, is when I start believing in what he's advertising. So again, and again, in the influencer world also, everybody's an influencer. Today everybody's trying to grow their fans, followers, and they're just everybody's trying to influence somebody. So there's a clutter there too. So for brands, it's become important that how do you influence the influencer itself. Influencing the influencer is a key motto for us as well, where we try to convince the influencer first that this is a great product for the TG who follows you. And we go to those influencers whose TG matches the TG that we are going after. And hence, a curation of influencers becomes critical. And then convincing the influencer that this is a great product becomes critical. When he's convinced, automatically authentic, honest reviews come out of him. How do we do that? Well, everybody is doing it the same way. They're writing great briefs, they're calling influencers, they're doing product demos for free, gifting products. Everything is happening. For us in the media and entertainment space, of course, previews, reviews, everything is getting shared with them. They're doing exclusive reviews as well. They're being called in to see content. All of that happens in the media space because they need to be convinced first. And once you've passed that level of influences, then you start doing it with your consumers also. Because, like I said, everyone can influence someone. So the consumer starts becoming an influencer, or he becomes a flag bearer for you. So you start developing him then with so much of knowledge about your product that it is the right product for him and his TG, that he starts to write authentic reviews for you.
Very interesting. So that actually is a start of a virtuous cycle, so to say, where it has a snowballing effect of building the brand. So the influencer is probably, let's say, a starter or a spark plug, so to say, in that whole process, right? We can
True, very true.
probably, visualize it that way.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. It's like a network that's spreading so fast.
Very interesting. Where do you see organic search in the journey of building and growing an entertainment brand?
Very interesting question. Honestly, organic search. I sometimes feel is very underplayed in our industry, but it's one of the most critical parameters of identifying product pull. It's the moment of truth. It's your report card. If organic searches are not happening, then your content is not working. Because at least in the media and entertainment industry, one important critical factor about content is the fact that it needs word of mouth. You can mount a piece of content really well, and you can advertise it very well, and you can give it a great launch, but it only sustains when people start talking about it. And when people start talking about your content, that's when your organic searches start to see a spike. There's a very interesting debate that we used to have internally in our company also, and we could see it outside also. People would say that, even if it's organic search, you should advertise on brand keywords. You should run your ads on your own brand. And there was always that conversation that if you don't run it, somebody else will run it on your keywords and all of that. But honestly, one day we finally took a call and we said, we're not going to spend advertising money to cannibalize our own organic search. Because organic search is actually a true true report card of how your new launch has been. And hence, we started focusing on two things very clearly. One is how organically your content is growing within our masses. And secondly, how are we doing the right SEO to ensure that the content shows up when the organic search is happening. So these two things have to work together to actually bring your content up to people. Uh, as I said, people don't remember platforms, they remember content. So you have to find a way to insert your platform everywhere, to a point that we started realizing that it's not just online, off page or on page or off page SEO. We started working on things like Wikipedia pages, knowledge boxes on Google. We started working on every single place where we know content search is going to happen. But what about our product? What about our platform? So, in my view, organic search is, as I said, the report card. And that's the best way to identify if you are doing a great job on your product or not.
Very well put. Very well put, Aman. You touched upon AI, when you spoke about marketing. So, can you elaborate on that in terms of, what is your take on AI in marketing and especially in relation to an entertainment brand like Shemaroo?
Sure. Obviously, AI has very useful applications in the entertainment space. Recently, I was, at the face. We had a creative workshop at Facebook at Meta, and they were telling us about how they're using AI to not just create dubs in different language of an English piece of content, but they're using AI to also change the lip sync so that the English content is has a dub in Spanish as well as the lips move for the Spanish words. So in the media and entertainment space, the next wave is going to have a lot of AI in lip sync. Audio, I'm sure you're reading about it. You can see everywhere it's already happening. They need about 6 seconds of your voice to emulate your voice completely through AI. So that's already happening. Dialogue delivery is happening. Now, video lip syncing is already happening. That's a space that's very big in the media space. It's coming up. There's also already, like I said, AI. There's a lot of AI that's already happening in the suggestion engine space to ensure that basis your browsing behavior, you are fed the right things. To ensure that there's a lot of creative analysis that AI is doing to identify what kind of creatives will you react to faster, Those are things where the concentration is. And obviously, the obvious question that everybody is asking is that is AI going to take my job? But that's honestly not the case. Uh, I think that AI is not going to replace jobs. Maybe it's going to replace some menial jobs. That's what it's going to do. It will still require a lot of resources to learn how to run AI successfully. People need to know how to ride the tiger.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of an enabler rather than a threat, so to say, right now. That is
True.
what people are talking about. And can you share some examples of AI that you have used in your marketing activities?
So for us, of course, in the creative space, AI has already made a good foothold. We've been using some AI tools like Invento and a lot of other tools, honestly, to in the creative space. So a lot of our visuals that we put out on social media, a lot of our promos that we create, they're not fully created in house because a lot of delivery is already present. We are just layering it with our product, our colors, our brands, and everything on top of it. So a lot of motion graphic that you see today is already AI generated. That's already happening.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
Performance marketing, I can't even tell you. Performance marketing is extremely AI based today. You know this about a year back, everybody was talking about identifying the right cohorts and going after them, and a lot of research that you need to do to understand your consumer and cohort so well for targeting. All of that is kind of thinly vanishing because all of that is now becoming AI. uh, Performance algorithms are finding you the right consumers. They're looking at you, your competition's consumers, they're bringing them to you. So audience finding and conversion based campaigning is taken a huge step there, and that's something that we are also riding on very heavily. And of course there's chat gpt. I can't speak of AI and in the copy space. uh, my teams are writing content out of chat gpt and other such platforms. Everybody is running their content and copies through them to write the best creative ways in which they can. uh, Obviously they're also checking that this is not copied content and all of that, but in-house I can see that there's a huge dependence on AI that's developing within people.
Wow, that's a lot of, I would say, applications as far as AI is concerned. And somewhere you feel, kind of, this is getting more and more intrusive when you talk about lip syncing, where I mean, we don't know what next.
True.
Interesting. Aman, we are in the last leg of the podcast. So, I would like to know from you if you can share some specific growth stories from your illustrious career.
Wow. At least at Shemaroo, I'm proud of the fact that we are actually the number one app in Gujarat right now. This is a significant achievement. We have very strong penetration with very few competitors who have such deep libraries as us. We do massive advertising, targeting the right people. It's interesting, sometimes when we go to places like Ahmedabad, people actually see a film and they say that, oh, okay, I'll just wait for it to come on Shemaroo and then I'll watch it on OTT. It's a simple thing, but it sounds like a great achievement. uh, I think over my career, evolving with technology has played a great role. We've done a lot of social media campaigns which have used a lot of technology. I remember in COVID, while people could not go to temples, we enabled so many people to do live darshans of temples, and not just that, you know, doing chadava of flowers and doing all of those things, and getting invited to what every time the mandir was doing something new was something that got a lot of people associated to our brand. uh, there's a whole lot of filters that my team creates, and those filters get so much more consumer engagement because of this, and technology has played a great role there. Back at Edelweiss, at my last job, we launched something called as a livability index for real estate clients. So if you were living in a place, uh, you could that every house that you chose to buy, each house would get a score basis the distance and kind of reviews people wrote about the amenities around that house on Google. So schools, colleges, hospitals, everything. We called it the livability index project. It was an award winning project, and again technology came to the rescue because
Hmm.
we were basically parsing, or we were API pulling all the data from Google Maps, and we were just doing basic calculations for people at the back end. But what I could see was it was adding a lot of value to our to our consumers' lives. Our sales teams were talking to consumers more in terms of numerically saying that which property is a great property for you to buy, and that's just making technology simpler for people to make decisions. So I'm very proud of some of these projects. They've helped me grow as well, understanding technology better.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing these nuggets of achievement. I would say, it throws a lot of light on what can be achieved through technology and through persistence in terms of understanding what the consumers want. Wonderful. Thanks a lot for that, Aman. Last question is, we would like you to share some takeaways for budding professionals, who would want to be successful in their careers.
Sure. I also share these sometimes in class when I teach, but more importantly, I think one major thing that people need to take up is reading and staying up to date, especially in your own industry. I mean, the world has come to a point where there is just so much deeper knowledge in every industry that needs to be unfolded, and reading is my top priority. So knowing each and everything that's happening in your industry is extremely important. The second one is kind of interesting, but if I had to talk to any professional who's starting up, I would say that beyond reading, assimilation and application is important, which means you should be able to analyze a problem from various angles and levers and remember so many multiple angles and levers. The world is full of complexities. There are complex problems. They need, sometimes the solutions are also very complex. But then that solution has so many moving parts and variables to it. So your ability to analyze all of this together is extremely important. Hence, remembering all these variables is extremely important. They say that, sometimes you have to fly a plane and repair it too at the same time. And to do that, you need to know every single part of the plane and what lever works within it. Uh, Also, I think the third important thing is becoming a subject matter expert today. You know, while you work in your industry and as you grow in your career, you will look at multiple things together. But in that journey, my advice is if you've caught hold of something, catch hold of it like a crab, and then really know everything about that particular one subject matter, become a complete expert, and then move on to the next one. And my final, takeaway is that I think the world is needs to become more focused on outcomes today. I mean, gone are the days when people used to say that, well, you're very hardworking, and that's really nice. Of course, putting good effort is extremely essential, but the outcome from that effort is even more essential. So my fourth and last point is that becoming outcome oriented is more important than effort oriented today.
Nicely put. I think the fourth point hit the nail on the head. Thank you, Aman, so much for your insights, for your time, and as I said, valuable nuggets of information that we got from chatting with you on this podcast. And it was a pleasure having you here on the Growth Genius podcast. Thank you so much.
Same here. It was a pleasure being here. A very interesting set of questions you asked me, Mehul. I had fun doing this podcast.
Great, great, super. Thank you so much. So, ladies and gentlemen, this brings us to the end of yet another episode of the Growth Genius. I always feel enlightened at the end of such podcasts because, as you see, Aman told us a lot of things about how marketing and technology, and especially AI, being used in building an entertainment brand like Shemaroo. So, I hope you enjoy this as well. I'm very thankful to all our growth geniuses and also to the audience, that is you, who keep on liking, sharing, subscribing, and viewing our content. That actually encourages us a lot and helps us to build this podcast day on day. Thanks a lot for your support on that. And as you know, keep liking, sharing, subscribing to our content. We are available across various social media platforms and also audio platforms. The links, of course, are mentioned in the descriptor below. So, till the next episode of the Growth Genius, keep learning, keep inspiring. Thank you.